Hello, fellow translators. Today, I am being joined by Adrian Probst, who you might know from Freelanceverse, which is another channel dealing with freelance translation. And so be sure to go check that out. But first, check out this interview with him. And we're going to be talking about his journey into freelance translation and also about branding, which he's been very good at. And we're going to talk a bit more into depth about what makes him tick as a translator. So stay tuned. Okay, so first of all, Adrian, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Robert. Excited to be here. Thank you.
So I have a number of questions for you. First and foremost, when, why, and how did you decide to study translation or to get into translation?
Yeah, that happened quite late, I would say. Well, late. I was still young, but I hear many translators always say, I knew from the beginning I would be a translator. It was always my dream. But honestly, I had no idea that it was even a profession. I grew up in a very small village, and this never came to mind that there is a need for other people understanding me, right? So, but I was just always good in languages in school. And so I knew that once it came to terms that I can actually go to university, this was a surprise on its own. I was faced with figuring out what I want to do, and there was no point in me going into any kind of natural sciences because I was really not good in any of this stuff. So I looked into language studies, and I wasn't going to a university. I was going to an applied university college. I'm not sure how the international viewers understand that, but in Switzerland we have a distinction. So you go to an applied university, which is much more focused on studying a profession. And yeah, translation was one of the only things that came up in a language-related circle. So I applied there. I had my entry exam and managed to get in. So this is when I started when was this? 2011 now. Yeah, I started my BA in translation in 2011, close to Zurich in Switzerland.
Interesting. So you, first of all, I should say, as you can tell, Adrian is from Switzerland, like I am, and he's from close to Bern, I think. So we're going to have the rest of the interview in Berndeutsch. And
okay.
No, we're not.
Everyone is clicking off.
Yeah, I know. No, and I wouldn't be able to. I'd be clicking off too. I wouldn't understand anything. So, so yeah, and so in terms of your journey now, looking back, was there anything you would change about it? Would you get into it? Well, you got into it a number of years ago, but you know, would you change anything about your journey into freelance translation?
No, absolutely not. I'm very happy with how everything turned out. Of course, it was hard. It was there are some drawbacks of being a freelancer. Maybe you can get into that later on as well. People always promote like this positive outlook. Everything is rosy and perfect, but it is not, right? It comes with problems. It comes with drawbacks. But overall, I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I can really, like, of course there are some jobs that are not as fun, but most of the time I enjoy extremely what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like work. I do a lot of subtitling lately, and that's just amazing. It's just like watching TV and localizing it at the same time, right? Yeah, in terms of my university, they did a lot of changes since I was there, which is good because when I was there was still some things lacking. Definitely, I just got in touch with someone from there recently, and they really want to make it more accessible, more known, that you can go also into freelance, because that was never really a topic in my university, right? And even after having studied translation, I still had no intention and no will to become a freelancer. I don't know if it's because it's quite tough in Switzerland probably to make it, because, you know, realistically all you can work for is Swiss clients, because they would be the only one that pay you Swiss salaries. So I don't know why this is, and I think they changed it now. They want to promote it more. So if I could change anything around the circumstances, that would be it. More representations of freelancers in the studies. But as my journey goes, no, it just, I never had a plan. It just worked out the way it worked out, and I'm very happy with where I am now.
Excellent. And I think the thing about freelancers, by the way, it's not just Switzerland, it's everywhere. I was amazed also in the US and other places, with the ATA and these established places. Yeah, freelancing is really not even on their radar, or just getting on their radar now, like, that this exists, even though it obviously has existed for over 10 years and longer. But yeah, I think it's, people are starting to realize that freelance translators are a big part of the industry now.
Yeah, and it's also our job, I think, to really, not just try to make a living somehow to pay our bills, right? This is not, it's still regarded as freelancers are like somehow just, flying under the radar, just making enough money to survive. But that doesn't have to be, right? You can be a profitable business with making decent or good revenue also as a freelancer. So it's also a mentality shift that is in our own hands to promote ourselves as real businesses.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I think that's, and it's getting a bit better over time, but yeah, I think absolutely you're right. And yeah, and along those lines, you've been very good at, branding in general. So let's get into that. And you, what do you think actually, what would you say branding means for a translator these days?
I said this recently. I was recently on a podcast and someone asked me this, and I had to say it's everything, really. It's what makes you stand out. It's what people notice you, especially with translation technology becoming stronger and stronger every day almost. It's not enough anymore, like to be a good translator. You also need to position yourself in a smart way, right? And you need to know the business world. You need to know your strength, find your USPs, and just really one major point for me was that I felt for a long time that I was capable of positioning myself in the industry, but I didn't know how, right? And it takes a lot of creativity, and you need to find a way to kind of outplay the others, your competition, not in a way that, very cutthroat, and not at all. Our industry is very supportive, and that's a great part of it, especially on LinkedIn. Everyone is supporting each other, but you need to find a way to stand out, and that can be extremely hard. For me, I did a lot of reflecting during the beginning of the pandemic, and I realized that I'm a huge fan of video content. I've been following your channel for years, and also some other translation-related channels. And I always knew, I think you say that yourself, right? You're not a YouTuber. You are publishing content on your YouTube channel, but you don't play the YouTube game. And I knew that there was like a little place where I would fit in, because I really like to do that, right? I really like to play with tags, titles, thumbnails, and really try to go deep into the analytics and the back end. So that's where I suddenly realized that this could be my niche. This could be where I could grow, and started in 2020 with the YouTube channel Freelanceverse, and been doing it ever since. Consistently, that's the key word.
Yeah. And
that's
and you've been doing a great job. You've had tremendous growth, with your channel and branding yourself in general. And so I think, yeah, that's worked out well with you. What advice would you have for someone who's just starting out now as a freelance translator, is in the beginnings and would like to brand themselves?
You definitely need to identify, first of all, your audience, right? Who do you want to brand yourself to? I get a lot of discussion points, or like people ask me, why do I brand myself kind of to my competitors, if you know what I mean? Like I decided to build my branding in a way that I build other translators up rather than focusing on my clients, right? And I think that's a fair criticism, of course, but it also turns out, and I knew it would, but it turns out that this still helps a lot with finding clients, because you still get to be known in the industry, and then people recommend you, right? And now basically all my leads are now coming from recommendations. And I can tell you it's so much easier than finding your own leads.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps. Of course, you can build your website, you can have business cards. That's just a given, right, in terms of branding, but I don't think it's that important. You should have it, but just building a website, no one will click on it, right? It's not enough to just build a website. You need to find a way to become that guy or that girl that does something. I wanted to become that guy on YouTube that talks about translation. And if you find that guy or that girl thing for yourself, that can be huge. And then once you found it, just have your name, your business name, or if you want to work in your own name, that's perfectly fine. Have brand colors, and then use them everywhere consistently, and just network. Just talk to people every day on LinkedIn if you can. That's really just, your name needs to be out there. And I noticed, like, don't change your profile pictures, for example, on LinkedIn too often, because I noticed that I really connect like a picture with a name. It's quite interesting. Like somehow it just becomes a unit, right? And you see always the same combinations. So yeah, just be present everywhere. That's my tip.
Okay, so basically, yeah, find sort of, a niche you can be known in, I guess, or and try to be consistent and get well known there, or something along those lines. And do you see what sort of mistakes do you see people making in terms of branding, or is there some consistent mistake that you see them do?
Yeah, it goes in the same direction. The main mistake is just laying back and thinking, I made my website, and it's cringe to put yourself out there. And it can be tough in the beginning, especially when you realize that LinkedIn is so powerful, and like literally thousands of people see whatever you put out there, because if one of your connection likes it, then their whole network sees it, right? So it's in a way amazing, of course, but in a way also very how do you say, like nerve-wracking, right? But yeah, if you just wait, and I always put this analogy there, and I really like this one, because if imagine a musician, for example, if he or she makes a website, puts all their music on there, and then just waits, right? Sends maybe a few emails to a record label once in a while, but nothing will happen with their career, right? The same applies to us. If you don't showcase your skills, if you don't put your portfolio, your creativity, your network out there into the world, no one will notice you. And we have such a powerful tool with working online, right? We have the world basically in our little box, and we can really showcase ourselves exactly how we want to. I just had a conversation yesterday with a subscriber that was interesting. If I remember correctly, he was translating video games from English to French. And he said he would really like to use like some of these clips to promote himself, but he doesn't know how. And I told him there's a huge potential, right? If you just assuming you have permission from the publisher, of course, but if you then take a clip, you show it in a short video, the English version of the video game, then you show the French one, and you explain very quickly what the challenges were. You cut it very quickly, fast into a 30-40 second clip, and you share it on whatever, shorts, reels, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever you can. That fits perfectly. You exactly target your target audience in the industry, right? And that will generate traffic for sure. So I hope he does it, and you need to find something like this that can make you stand out and then be consistent.
Yeah, that would be a great, actually, that would be amazing, something like that. And I've seen the same thing because I've seen translators who've literally spent thousands of dollars on a website, say, and want to make it perfect, and then kind of just leave it there. And and they're not even on LinkedIn or something. And I'll be like, that's great, but that website is never going to have the SEO that LinkedIn has, and so you need to, no one's going to find you just by being out there. You have to get out there, and these days, LinkedIn is a huge part of that, but also, like you say, TikTok, YouTube, stuff like that, whatever it might be. So it's a good point. Changing gears a little bit, I wanted to get into what you do as a translator. I know you into IT and tech translations, which scare me a lot because they can be quite technical. Well, how did you get into those? Is this something you studied, or is it just something you're into, or what?
Yeah, that's good that they scare you. A lot of people should be scared, so there's enough for us.
So less competition.
No, I mean, of course, the tech field can be extremely scary, and it's huge, right? And there is no way that I'm very fascinated by technology, new innovations, but of course I can't work on all the new tech innovations because some of them you need vast electrical engineering knowledge or medical engineering or whatever. But what I focus on mostly is IT. hardware, software, data science, a lot of cloud nowadays, cloud storage, cloud server, all that kinds of texts. And, you know, within that field, you still have kind of marketing related texts when you want to sell a cloud service, for example, but then you have a very technical text, how for example, the manuals of the cloud for the developers, right? So within the tech field, you still have very technical marketing, consumer-facing, developer-facing context. So it keeps it very interesting. And of course, it takes a lot of continuous learning, a lot of reading. I have a few subscriptions for magazines because I still like actual magazines to read out in the sun, and that helps me a lot. So I have one in English and one in German. Both are important because you need to know the jargon in both languages, right? Especially in IT and tech, it can be tough because you want to use a lot of English words in German as well, but not overwhelm the audience, right? Not too much. But of course, if you talk to a developer, it's easier to use a lot of English words as well, also in the German copy, because the UI will mostly be English, right? But whereas in a marketing text where you try to sell an IT software, you don't want to use too much jargon. So you need to know both sides, both target and source language very well in this topic. Yeah, that's how I started. That was my first specialization, and I had in mind that this would be my main thing. Turned out, I know you also want to talk about the other one, so the other one is growing now more and more.
Yeah, well, but before we get into that, because you mentioned this, continuous education, that you're reading these magazines and stuff like that, and I assume so. This is something that you would recommend, like, and what type of continuous education would you recommend for other translators out there? Subscribe to magazines, and what else is there?
Doesn't need to be magazines, right? Everything is now also online nowadays, but just read, stay up to date, especially if you are in a specialization in an industry that is fast changing. You need to stay up to date. I mean, if you're a medical translator, realistically, you should read like all the publications like the doctors do, right? I mean, it can be overwhelming. I don't know when people find time for that, but I guess the key is to also calculate this time into your prices in a way, and just charge as an expert, because, I always tell people, you don't charge for the 30 minutes job you do, you charge for the education, for the experience, for the learning and all. So yes, definitely read a lot, go to conferences as well, virtual conferences, in-person ones, and not only to translation conferences, but also to the ones in your industry. That's also very important. And it can sometimes be a bit weird because mostly you have a tag with what you do, right? And if I was at the Smart Home Expo in Birmingham, and it was all about, they were all tech people there, and then mine said German translator. It's a nice icebreaker because people are so confused, like, what are you doing here? Yeah. But then you already can tell them, yeah, I want to bring your product to Germany and to Switzerland, and then they're interested, right? So yeah, these things are amazing. That also helps a lot with the fear that many people have. Many freelance translators think themselves as introverts and don't want to go out to meet people. So if you can attend maybe first some virtual workshops, virtual conferences, and then step by step go out there and also go to real life ones. And don't feel bad if in the first few times you don't speak to anyone. That was exactly the same with me. I went to Stuttgart in 2017 or so to the German technical writing conference, and I literally didn't say a word to anyone, and I went home again. But it was still nice. It was, you learn. Next one will be better. And also business education, if you can afford it and if you have time, that's always valuable, because we are business owners.
And it's a good point also, the one you mentioned. If you go to a conference in your industry, not about translation, but whatever your specialization is, I think in a way it can be an advantage if you stand out. and in a room full of, people doing, tech stuff, you're the only translator, they're more likely to remember you. And I think that's, I found the same thing. I'll go to a meeting, a financial meeting, or, they're all bankers or something like that. And I'm there, in translation, and they're all, exactly like that. They're like, what are you doing here? And so in a way, I've come to see that as an opportunity to sort of stand out. So yeah, but now let's get into your other industry or specialization, which is sports. And so how did you get into that? And
this one happened naturally, and that really out of the blue, let's say. And many people are struggling are struggling with finding specializations. And I tell people that they shouldn't worry. You can always start out as a generalist, and things will happen naturally, right? I never thought I would be in the sports industry, and now I absolutely love it. And ever since I've been building it up, I've just found one job, and now it's about to take over as my main specialization, actually, because I do a lot of subtitling and translation jobs in this area. I love it. It's localization is super important in this area, especially. I do a lot of game reports, for example, for football games. And if you read a Swiss game report from football, compare it to a German game report, it's completely different, right? There's so much different references, throwbacks, and jargon words in there that need hyper localization. Sometimes even for the region in Switzerland, if you really talk about like a club hero, and you're translating from, like, let's say an Aston Villa club hero, you can't just write the same for the Swiss audience. You need to find, like, I don't know, a club hero from the FC St. Gallen, right? And so it's very, I love it. It's amazing. And I try to build this up into my main thing that I do.
Yeah, they have, and it's true, because they have, I've noticed with Ticino too. I'm from the Italian part of Switzerland, but the Italian there, it's Italian, but there are quite a few differences, in terms of writing as well, and as compared to the Italian from Italy. And so, the localization in that sense can be very important. And so let's talk about, now I assume you get most of your jobs. Well, now it seems like you have quite a few jobs coming to you. And so that's, a good place to be in. And before that, it was probably, like, you seem quite active. I seen that you're on LinkedIn, and on SmartCat as well, because they have their own kind of platform there. I don't know how active you are there. And you're also on pros.com, but my impression is that you probably don't do much business through Pros. And so I kind of just wanted to get an idea, where do you, or maybe in the past, before jobs started coming to you, where is it that you would find most of your jobs, and where was your go-to place for that?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that about Pros. And I was wondering, when you talked about, or was it in, I don't know if it was in this video and on the previous one, about ratings on Pros, right? And I actually don't think I have any ratings on Pros, but I still started out on Pros, and I still found my first clients there. And still now I get a lot of requests through Pros. But it's true, my profile sucks if you really look at it, and if I don't put a lot of effort in there. You can definitely do so much more on there. I mean, I talked with many people from Pros as well, and they told me, hey, you should work on your kudos points and etc. But for me, if I started out again now, I would do all these things, but back then I just didn't know about it, and it was not needed. I think it also worked a bit differently, because nowadays I feel like you don't really have a chance anymore with the free version of Pros. I don't know if that's just my impression, right? But when I started out, I used the free version. It was perfectly fine. So I guess they changed something in the algorithm. But I'm a big proponent of,
Sorry, I mean, because you mentioned that, I think I have a video coming up soon about signing up for Pros and going through what you can do with the free version and the paid. And but yeah, you're perfectly right. If you want to actually apply for a job, you have to pay at least some money. And so, I think it's
okay. Interesting. Yeah, when I started, this was not needed. Now I also have a paid version, because I use their invoicing tool, for example, and I love it. It's very nice. And a lot of education is on there if you have a paid subscription. So I think it's worth it, but you need to know, of course, in the beginning, it's tough to invest, I know.
Yeah.
But I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. don't put much effort into prose. I'm not saying it's not worth it. You should do it. It's definitely the first stop that a freelance translator should look into when you're starting out. But I said it before, like LinkedIn is just such a powerful tool, and sometimes I can't believe that the free version is still so powerful, right? It's really everyone in your industry, from the absolute newbies to the highest of the highest strategy people, are just at your reach. You can just reach them with whatever you want to tell to them, and that's so unbelievable to me. And once I realized that, I also kind of targeted my posts like this. I want to come across kind of, you know, relaxed. I don't want to be this business person in a business context. I want to be, a relaxed freelancer, but also with business knowledge. And I think that comes across nicely now. And I've started to work with brands for my YouTube channel as well. And that seems to be what they appreciate, to have this kind of voice to reach newbie freelancers, same as you do as well.
Yeah. And and LinkedIn has been, especially in the past couple of years, I think it's been amazing.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the whole prose thing, and that's why I wanted to get into it, because one of the first things I tell people is like, you should be up there on prose and you should be out there. But you've been able to build your career without using prose that much. It's interesting to see. So actually, so when you did get your first clients, so it was through LinkedIn that you got some, or no, you said you got something through prose at the beginning.
But yeah, the first ones I got through prose, yes.
Oh, okay. So it was still through prose. Okay. Interesting. So we're getting toward the end of this now, but just briefly, I wanted to talk about, you are Swiss and now you are living in Belgium. And I wanted to talk about working, with your clients, are they all remote? Are they're in Belgium? Are they in Switzerland? Are they elsewhere in the world? And I want to talk a little bit about working remotely, living remotely, and that as a freelance translator, because I know that's a big part of freelance translation life.
Definitely, yes. Most of my clients are in Switzerland and in Germany. I do have some clients in the European Union, a few in Australia and America, USA. But most of them are in Germany and Switzerland, and that's where I target people as well. That's where I reach out to agencies, to direct clients. When I do paid advertisements for YouTube or for other ads, I always target Germany and Switzerland as well. So that's where I want to keep my clients. And the fact that I live here doesn't really change much. In a way, it's even a benefit, because I can market myself as a Swiss translator not living in Switzerland, right? So I don't need to charge the high prices. I always tell people I can, and I will, and I should, but I don't have to. And that already, just that I don't have to, is a kind of a mentality shift for clients. It just happened, life brought me here. I met my girlfriend. We went together to the Netherlands to study, and then we ended up here. And, for us, we can work from anywhere.
Right.
And I think Brussels is a very nice place to live when you're an international couple. And I can use my French here. I learned Dutch as well in the Netherlands, so I can, even though it's not exactly Dutch here, right? Don't tell people I speak Dutch, but I can use my Flemish in a way. But we still enjoy it very much here. I go often back to Switzerland. Just came back last night, actually, from Bern. Wow. So I can combine, of course, with my job. I can easily work from my parents' place, so I can just hop on a train, go to Basel, and then down to Bern. That's within 6 hours, I'm home. I really enjoy this combination.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and it's good, exactly like a freelancer. It gives you that flexibility to be able to do that, and so that's something I've always appreciated. And that's pretty much it. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. Thanks so much. As I said, I've been following your channel for years, and I'm excited to be on here. It's an honor. And hope you enjoyed the interview, everyone.
Yeah, and again, I'll put a link to his channel, because your channel has been growing like crazy, and it's interesting to see how that has also translated into freelance work. Like you said, people finding you, I assume, quite a bit of it is also thanks to your channel.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And so yeah, thank you again for joining me. And once again, this was Adrian Probst from Freelanceverse. And otherwise, I will talk to you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye. Savedum.